Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing deepfakes and the law. Now, Lara, in the last segment, we were talking about these concerning cases where deepfake technology has been used to create false, sexually explicit images, including images of minor girls, and often these images are created by underage boys, by minor boys in their class. And I do share your concerns that you raised about criminalizing teenage boys, even though their conduct is, I think, worthy of condemnation. I think that there's a lot of complexity in these cases, and I think that there's responsibility that also lies with the companies that are creating this technology. So where does liability lie? Does this engage criminal code prohibitions that would apply to the AI companies that are allowing the creation of these awful images?
So if you're asking me that, I don't know if Phillipe wants to weigh in on that. This is one of the tricky questions. And of course, we have our Canada's new online harms bill that is trying to put more of the onus on the companies to have that responsibility. But we do tend to sort of think about deepfakes and AI-based technologies sometimes as inherently bad. And it's not necessarily the technology or even the corporations that are creating them. It's that we need to think about how we're using them. So what we want to do is spend time teaching the young people, just like we did with sexting, about how we respect one another's bodies and how we respect one another's autonomy, and think about that rather than necessarily putting the onus on legislators or the corporations or the companies that build the technology.
No, I absolutely agree with you that there's, of course, non-malicious uses for this technology, and it's an emerging technology that has a sort of unexplored potential uses for the future. But I mean, I understand the concern about these explicit images and the impact that it could have on teenage girls in particular. And Phillipe, maybe you can talk to me about whether there's a possibility of building some type of protection into the technology itself to ensure that it isn't abused. Are there any solutions there that could be explored?
Yes. Well, when it comes to commercial product, given the very large user base and the means they have, they're spending considerable efforts and resources in trying to ban illegitimate uses, from banning keywords in request, in text-to-image generation, and to do what we call RLHF, which is reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is the idea of having actual humans, paid human workers, typically in emerging countries where labor is cheap, to filter the system's output and ban child pornography and all sorts of illegitimate content or unwanted content. And in fact, there's lawsuits by those workers who united because they now have PTSD and they've been exposed to terrible content for months and months at a time, trying to train the system not to generate that. But this is just because those big companies have an interest, of course, to become good actors and to help, and to make sure that the lawyers don't ban their systems, and so they try their best. But the truth is that there is well-known jailbreaking techniques, as we call them, to go around those limitations, even for the most sophisticated systems. And to complicate things, there's also a lot of what we call open source systems that are, not taken care of by any known companies or registered entities. And besides that, for people who are savvy in coding, then you can develop your own systems, in which case, you can develop systems explicitly to go around and against those protections. So eventually, as one becomes increasingly tech savvy, there's nothing that can really stop you from generating those content. There might be people who stop you to post that content, but every consequence will typically go after the fact. And if your servers are in Thailand, I think there's very little thing that Canadian law enforcement can do at the moment.
Phillipe, we've got about a minute left, but I think maybe one of my other questions is, could there be a technological solution in helping the public identify what deep fakes, so that we know what to believe? We have only got about a minute.
Yeah, the simple answer is no. There's no, at the moment, reliable way, technological or otherwise, to systematically tell synthetic media from human-made content apart, whether it's legitimate or illegitimate content. So my advice is to not trust any content unless you trust the source, and even then, be careful, because the real problem is not going to be the deepfake we know and have talked about in the media. The real problem is going to be personalized message, imitating your voice and calling your relatives to ask them for money.
Right, absolutely. Good advice. We've got to go now to commercial break, but we'll be right back.